Welcome, everyone. As you filter in, we invite you to get comfortable in this next hour as we're going to discuss the upcoming program from Northwestern Kellogg Executive Education, Strategies that Build Winning Brands. Today's informational webinar is going to touch on the content of the program and how you'll be learning that content. So I'm going to introduce them in just a little bit, but just briefly on the line, we do have Professor Julie Hennessy and Professor Timothy Calkins, who are both here from Northwestern Kellogg, and I'm excited to introduce them in just a bit. But before we go there, I'd like to formally welcome you all to Northwestern Kellogg. We cannot be live together on campus, but here's a nice picture of this school and the university here. And again, though we're not live together, the online community is just as robust as the physical community, right? And what you're getting when you come to Northwestern College is the same as what you'd be getting inside the building. Top faculty, your peer-to-peer connections, as well as the rich interactive experience, much like what we're having right here, right now. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce your two faculty members who are on all our Northwestern College faculties are working in the now. They're in the industries that they're representing, getting the best thought leaders in the program, and you'll have access to them as your professors. Much like we're communicating right now, you have your peer-to-peer connection. If you're looking through the chat, you can see that we're globally connected. So this is your network growing in a global way. And with those peer-to-peer connections, you can really connect and share your ideas and thoughts and collaborate. And again, the rich interactive experience, we're going to go through a little bit of what that feels like today together as we go through this webinar. There's going to be a live Q&A discussion at the end, much like what you will have during your class time. So really being able to bring our global connectedness from all over the world together here in the community online space, just as you would in your physical space if you were on campus together. So again, welcome to Northwestern Kellogg, and we're excited to have you and to teach you more about what we have. All right, so who is this program for? When we thought about strategies that build winning brands, who was this idea for? So if you look at our PowerPoint slide here, we have brand managers, directors, growth and strategy leaders, general managers, basically anyone who has the decision-making power in their company or their own organization. So I want to take a moment here to ask, where do you fall in this list? Are you a brand manager? Are you a growth and strategy leader? Where do you fall? Where do you fall in that list? What industry do you hail from? How many years experience do you have? The more you can share with us, the more we can help show you how this program can tailor and help your business and transform your business growth or your own organization. With that, I'd like to formally introduce our faculty members for the program. First, we have Professor Julie Hennessy, who's online with us today. She is working as an MBA in executive teaching. Her teaching focuses on the development of marketing strategies that enhance long-term competitive and advantage and profitability. As you can see here, she's won many awards, including Professor of the Year. So you have not just the best, but the very best that was voted into that. So you have the top professor, as we mentioned before. Her writing concentrates on the places for classroom use. Recent cases, you'll see her work with lots of the companies you've heard of before, like Facebook, McDonald's, Nestle, and more. So Professor Hennessy, would you like to jump off and say hello to the audience?
Yeah. So glad to be here today and really enjoy sharing with you what we do in this program. I've been teaching at Kellogg for over 20 years. I teach 3 courses. I teach the intro kind of core marketing course that all MBAs take. I teach an advanced marketing strategy course, and then I teach a consulting lab course where we're doing this just in the spring coming up soon here. And we have 11 different clients, companies, that bring in problems, and we staff them with groups of students, and they go to work for these clients for 10 weeks in, kind of mini internships. And so I've really enjoyed my time teaching at Kellogg. Before that, I actually sort of sat in your seat. So I got to play general manager or brand manager. I spent a number of years at Kraft, and also before that, a number of years at General Mills. And so that's my background. I have enjoyed teaching at Kellogg in a whole bunch of different ways on the exec side and also on the regular MBA student side. And I'm really enjoying doing these Emeritus webinars and having a chance to connect with an even broader audience. Tim, I'm going to pass this over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie, and welcome everybody. It's so nice to see everybody zooming in from all over the world. It is incredible how we can do this. This is it's one of the great things about technology and what we've all learned how to do. So my background, you can sort of read it here, but just like Julie, I come out of industry. So I spent a number of years at Kraft Foods. I've now been at Kellogg for quite a long time. I teach two main courses. I teach marketing strategy and I teach biomedical marketing, which is all healthcare focused. I also though teach branding here in this program and also in other programs. In addition to that, I've got books that I've written. So I've written a book on marketing plans and defensive strategy and presenting. So a number of books. And then I work with companies. And that is always really a nice combination of getting a chance to work with students in the classroom and then having a chance to go work with companies to see some of the things they're wrestling with very real time. One of the companies I worked with pretty recently was Moderna, and working on the COVID vaccine. And that's been a really interesting experience to think about the marketing and branding behind that. And that's just really fun, the type of stuff we get to get involved. So what I want to do is to spend a little bit of time, though, and tell you about this program. So I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to pass it to Julie. But let me take you through the first part of it, and let's tell you about this program on branding. We are super excited about this program. Branding is so important, and we love how this program gives people the tools, the processes, the skills to really get out there and manage and lead their brands in their different organizations. So if you think about outcomes, what do you take from a program like this by the time you are done? Number one is the ability to really think about the foundation of your brand, the brand positioning, the brand character, the brand purpose, to be able to figure out all of that, to be able to think about the healthier brand. How are you doing? How's the brand performing? Is your brand doing well, or is it not doing well? That's really important. And we'll talk about ways to do that. Also in this program, one of the goals is to help you think about brand portfolios. Issues like, when do we need another brand? And when do we want a sub-brand, or maybe an endorsed brand, or maybe we have too many brands and we should get rid of them? And how do we think all about all of those issues? Also, very much it's about thinking about, how do we build our brand? How do we grow it? How do we find incremental profitability? How do we find growth? And then how do we respond to competitive threats? So when someone is coming at us and someone's attacking us, how do we respond, and what do we do, and how do we think about that? And that's another piece. So this program, it's not just about sort of the philosophy of branding. We try to give you the hands-on tools here to both define your brand, but then to work with your brand also as you think about building it. So the way we do this is, the way we address all these outcomes is we basically take the program and we split it into different chunks and to different modules. And is how we sort of do this. So if we can bounce on to the next page there, if we sort of look how we split the course up. So the way the journey works in this program is we start off with the foundations. That's the basics. What's a brand? Why do we care about it? How do we define a brand and our positioning and all of that? We start right there. Then we go into understanding customers. And we have a module around this, which is all around thinking about customer journeys and what do we know about our customers. Ultimately, brands are only valuable to the extent that they connect with customers. And so it's really about understanding your customers and how your brand fits into their world. So understanding customers becomes really, really important. Then we have a big part that we get into on brand portfolios and all of the issues there. Brand health, we talk about that. And then strategies for growth, which is both the growth side of things and the defense side of things. We sort of take these 5 different parts to it. So what we do is we split the program into these modules. No, that's right. Let's go on to module number 1. That's terrific. And module number 1 is, as we sort of think about these 6 weeks, we begin with the foundations and we really get into that. So in module number 1, this is our first week, we start with the basics. What is a brand? How does a brand add value? Why do we care about brands? How do we think about brands? Good brands versus less good brands. That sort of sets the stage. And with module 1, this week 1 here, not that complicated and yet really important, right? Because that defines why we really care about brands. Then we start getting a little more complicated and we get into module 2, which is our second week. Module 2, let me pass this over to Julie to tell us a little bit about module 2 and what we cover in that one.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. So in module 2, we get into kind of the building blocks of basic marketing strategy here. And so we will talk about segmenting markets, picking targets and non-targets, how you keep your focus on a target and make sure you're best for them without being so exclusive that you make your opportunity smaller. And so we'll talk about the rules for picking a smart target. We'll do some practice on writing positioning statements. Positioning statements are kind of internal documents that help you keep your organization focused on the strategy that you picked, the target that you're going to go after, the benefits that you're going to attempt to be best at. And so we'll do some practice on positioning statements, which is really useful. And then we'll also talk about a couple newer trending sort of areas. We'll talk about purpose-driven marketing and whether having a layer of kind of being affiliated with a cause can help you differentiate and help you grow as a brand. We'll also talk about things like brand personality, and which is tied importantly to the sense that you're authentic as a brand or inauthentic as a brand. And so we'll spend some time kind of understanding these building blocks that exist really for every marketing strategy in the second week. And then on the third week, we're going to build on top of that. Can we go on to module 3? Module 3, we're going to take those, those decisions on segmentation, on targeting, on positioning, on brand purpose, on brand personality, and we're going to start to spin that into execution. And we're going to learn some tools in this third week that are going to help us do that. We're going to talk about how we take these increasingly very data-oriented profiles of our segments and make them back into human beings again to a certain extent with the use of personas. And personas are a tool that lots of companies have found to be really, really useful in increasing kind of the empathy of their organization as they relate to their targets. We'll also kind of play with this important tool of customer journeys. For years and years and years, companies thought of kind of this zero moment of truth when the customer is standing in front of a shelf or now in front of a screen and making a decision between product A and product B. But increasingly, right, we realize that we have to interact with customers long before they're in front of that shelf. When they're starting to think about the category, when they're in a dreaming phase versus a decision and buying phase, when they're, when they're early on in the process, and then after they buy, as they're using the product, as they might be recommending the product to others, all of that sort of stuff fits into the customer journey. And as a brand, we have to think about how we want to interact with the customer at each one of these phases. So we'll play with this idea of customer journeys. We'll also talk about a really interesting model for how customers buy. Sometimes they buy in very, very rational modes. Sometimes they buy in almost habitual modes. Sometimes they buy in very emotionally driven modes. And knowing how your target customer is buying will give us some hints about how you can go effectively market to them. So we're going to build this kind of toolkit in module 3 that's going to be really useful for us as we build execution later. And then I'm going to pass it back to Tim, and he's going to talk a little bit about week 4 in architecture.
All right. Thank you, Julie. So week 4, we start making things a little bit more complicated because in week 4, we start getting into brand portfolio strategy. So, it's one thing to build a brand, and that's really complicated, not so easy, because you really got to think about your positioning and the customer journey and all of the touch points and everything that Julie talked about. Things get a lot more complicated, though, when you start thinking about multiple brands. And at many companies, and I suspect many of your companies, you don't have just one brand. You've got a number of different brands that you're managing. So in brand portfolio strategy, we look at, what's the opportunity? Why do we think about having multiple brands? And why, for many companies, is a multi-brand strategy really a great approach? But then we also look at what are the problems that come with that and the challenges. And so you have to think about the trade-offs the positives again relative to the negatives there. So in that one, we get into the questions about new brands versus repositioning existing brands versus sub brands and endorsed brands and branded ingredients and branded services, and all the different ways that a portfolio can take shape. We look at some of the great portfolios in the world and some of the real troubled portfolios and try to learn from both of those. And then we get into module 5. And in module 5, we get to the question about how do we really think about evaluating brands, and how do we think about creating powerful marketing plans. Really two big things here. So the one is around measurement and health, and understanding the health of our brands. Really important step. If we don't know how our brands are doing, it's hard to figure out, do we need to invest more? Do we need to repair? There's probably different ways to do that. Not a perfect way to evaluate the health of a brand, but there are different things to think about. And there are some very much best practices in that space. We'll talk about those. Then we get into creating a marketing plan. And, when you think about action, as a market, and I look here at who's in our program here, a lot of folks who come to this program, they're managing brands. And so it's not just this idea about getting everything just right. The question is, how do we move forward? How do we get action? What are we going to go do? And creating a marketing plan is a really important tool for helping do that, for getting alignment in an organization, for having a clear direction and a clear purpose. And so we talk about marketing plans here in module 5 as well. Really useful tools. There's a nice framework for a plan. And we talk about how do we write good ones. Having a good marketing plan and being able to lay that out clearly is so valuable in a company. And it's one of the things that people take from this program that really helps them right away in terms of how do we get action on that. And then we go to module 6. And module 6 is all about the big picture strategy. So let me send it back to Julie to tell us about module 6.
I love module 6. And one of the reasons I love module 6 is we get to promote you. All right. We're going to promote you from being a brand manager, all right, to being responsible for the whole business's results. And as we do that, right, we talk about how you're going to drive growth. Because most of you, if you're working on a vital, interesting brand, right, one of the ways you're going to get judged is, can you grow it from where it was when you took it over to someplace that is bigger, that is better, that is more protected, that is more important than it was on day one when you leave it on day whatever. All right. So we'll talk about different strategies for growth here. We'll talk about how to design a strategically smart brand extension, maybe moving into another product category, right? Or another form of product. We'll talk about growth strategies that actually two almost contradictory growth strategies. One is how to grow a brand by letting it play in a bigger sort of arena. And the other one, which is a little more counterintuitive, which is how to grow a brand by tightening down the focus even tighter and becoming more perfect where you play. And so we'll talk about a bunch of ways to think about growth. And then we're going to turn the table, right? Because, and while you don't read about it a lot, one of the things that we think, Tim and I both think, is really kind of under discussed in business school is how to defend your brand. All right. And part of the reason we don't talk about this a lot in life is we don't want to get attacked. And so we sort of think if we don't talk about getting attacked, you won't get attacked. But in reality, the only way to not get attacked is to never build anything that anybody else wants to steal. And that's sort of unfulfilling. And so if we succeed in helping you build something that will be enviable to others, then one of the things that we can predict is that by the time we get done helping you build something that is really, formidable, somebody will come and try to take it away from you. And so last thing that we're going to spend some time on is how you behave when you're under attack. How do you put some numbers around what that attack could cost you? How do you fight within your organization for ferocious defense? What should that ferocious defense look like? And how do you make sure you're in a situation where you can protect what it is that you build? And this turns out to be something that ends up being a really important skill set. And so we'll talk about creating defense plans just in case what we help you build is so strong that other people can't risk, it can't resist coming and trying to take it away. So that will be kind of where we end the new content in week 6. And I think between week 1 and week 6, we really take people through an evolution of skills that is pretty transformational. As we do this, one of the things that I like best about this program is that we don't just explain things to you, we give you a chance to practice, and we give you a chance to practice enough that you develop some confidence that you can actually, you don't just know what a positioning is, you've written some, right? You don't know what a defense plan is. You've had to think through where you would put your resources. And so, we'll have you work on writing a positioning statement for a Microsoft product. We'll take a look at innovative ideas for customer acquisition for a relatively young firm like Blue Apron. We will we'll put you in the situation where you have a innovative piece of technology coming out of R&D. And you have to decide whether that's going to be tucked into one of your current products under an existing brand, or whether it is a big enough deal that it maybe could be the base for launching a new brand. And how do you make that kind of new brand, old brand sort of situation for a new feature edition? We'll practice writing these one-page marketing plans that kind of summarize what you're trying to do, what the main ways you're going to get to it are, and how that kind of cascades into tactics in a way that can be summarized tightly enough that it can be communicated and brought to everybody in your organization. And as I said, when we talk about defense, we'll kind of turn a little financial here. And one of the things that's really important in justifying defense is understanding the potential cost of an attack on you, not only today, but in the future. And so we'll work through some of the math and how you do that. And in each one of these cases, get you familiar enough with these tasks and doing these things that you could do it on your business, you could do it on your own, and you could lead your organization in trying to do this. And that's really our objective here. Okay, so let's pass it back to Tim.
One of the things that's important in the program is that we use examples from lots of different industries and lots of different parts of the world, because all of these examples sort of help us bring things to life, and we can learn from all different brands. It's interesting. Every brand is different. It's like every person is sort of different, and every brand has its own issues, just like every person has its own issues. But there's a lot of things we can learn when we study different brands and we see what they're going through, what's worked for them, what hasn't. And so these examples become really important for us as we work through the program. So we'll talk about a whole range of them. So in the program, we talk about Blue Apron. That's a meal delivery kit brand. We'll talk about True in hospitality, a Hilton brand. We'll talk about Grainger, very much of a B2B brand, and the industrial supplies. Tiffany, of course. Unilever comes up, one of the global leaders there. We do get into the financial services with Bank of America. We'll touch on them. We even go to the world of travel and safaris, and we'll talk about the safari business and what's involved there. Airlines, Starbucks, a lot of the great brands of the world come up here, but not just consumer brands. We try to touch on beyond that and touch on B2B and financials, travel, all of those things. We also, in the program, will look at some of the great competitive battles that are out there. Brands don't exist on their own. They exist in a competitive world. So when you think about a brand strategy, it always has to be competitive in context and competitive in nature, because we're not alone. We're surrounded by other brands, and we have to find a way to define our brand within that space, within that world. So we look at some of the great competitive battles that are out there, Mercedes and BMW, such competitive, Microsoft and Apple, terrific brands, both of them, very, very competitive in their space. Hoover and Dyson in the world of vacuum cleaners. We'll look at that space. FedEx versus Amazon, what an interesting competitive battle unfolding right there. So we'll dive into a lot of these different brands to try to explore how do these branding concepts come to life as we look at different situations. And I think these competitive battles are some of the most fun parts of branding. As Julie said, defense and thinking about how brands compete with each other is it's an area that doesn't get that much attention, but it is just really, really important. And so in this program, we'll spend time on that. I think it's sort of an eye-opening piece to think about how brands really compete in these spaces. So let's go on to the next page then. All right, let's talk about our guest speakers. Hey, Julie, do you want to talk about our guest speakers?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So every once in a while, it occurs to us that there's a point we're trying to make or something we're trying to share with you that we could talk about, but we have a colleague that could talk about even better. And so sometimes we're going to bring in some of our colleagues, our faculty colleagues, or sometimes even our past student colleagues as little cameos. So let me give you a few examples of those. Gina Fong is a professor at Kellogg, and she specializes in consumer insight and kind of ethnographic ways to kind of go be with consumers and understand better what they do, why they do it, not only from asking them questions, but from watching how they function. And so she'll come in and talk about getting deeper consumer insights, customer insights, and some tools for doing that. Eben Gillette is actually a Kellogg grad, had me in class and also Professor Hawkins, Tim in class a number of years ago, and now is a vice president at a company called the Wine Group. And the reason we bring him in during the portfolio part of this course is when you think about the wine industry. The wine industry is a weird industry where we kind of think of we like new wine brands all the time. If you're bringing a wine to somebody else's house for dinner, you want to bring something maybe that you like, but that they've never had before, and tell them a little bit about it. And that's how you show you know a lot about wines. And that's how you kind of add to the life of the party by bringing something new to people that they haven't had before. That sort of consumer mentality gives us a very weird structure in terms of branding, because it means there are going to be lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of brands. And that when a brand gets big and gets kind of common, it loses some of its cachet. And so people in the wine industry have an unusual challenge in managing portfolios of literally hundreds or thousands of brands. And so Eben will come in and talk to us about how he does that. And then we'll also bring in Kevin McTeague. And Kevin McTeague is another one of our Kellogg colleagues. And he has a real specialty in the digital area, and is going to come in and talk about kind of the challenge of, in this digital area where there are new touch points, new technologies, new way to connect with consumers or customers literally being invented almost on a monthly basis. How do you keep track? How do you use the customer journey as a framework for figuring out what to use in terms of technology and when to use it and how to use it? And how can that be useful? And so we'll bring Kevin in. So, one of the kind of cool things in this course is that you get to know Tim and I well, but we're gonna bring in other people for you to learn from. And so you're gonna have, not only will you learn from each other, but you're gonna have a real kind of a circle of experts to gain some knowledge from. There we go. And what do you get in total? I think you're going to find that you understand more about what we mean and need in a brand today, what makes brands effective with customers, and how we use understanding branding as a way we can really drive both growth and profitability in our business. That's our hope for what we can do with you over 6 weeks is help you understand how to use brands to create growth and prosperity in your organization. It's a big lift for 6 weeks. And yet the feedback that we've been getting as we've run earlier runs of this course is that we really do have the ability to transform your abilities and your capability to really make a difference in your organization on the brand you work on or on a brand that you want to work on in the future. If you're in a position of thinking about like, what's my job now and what do I want my job to be in the future? And so we're very excited about the course. We enjoy teaching it enormously. And it's been great to get really positive feedback from people who have gone through in cohorts before you.
Thank you so much, Professor Hennessy and Professor Calkins, for sharing and going through that content with us so thoroughly. I can see the excitement, the passion from both of you, and I'm sure you can feel it in the crowd. Thank you all again for being here. We're going to move into the next step. You have just learned the content of the program. I'm going to go through it in a little bit and talk about the how you'll be learning it. So the learning experience, how you'll be learning all this amazing content, what you can expect each week. So again, as I saw in the chat here, many of you are already working professionals, already brand managers and managing portfolios in the now. So we want to make sure that our work and what you have to complete is convenient as well as interactive so that it's exciting and fun and transformative that you can bring into the now. As Professor Hennessy just said, there's activity that you can use right now and we can actually change how your brand is working and make transformable and actionable steps. We do that with bite-sized learning techniques. So you have nice bite-sized learning opportunities, 5 to 10 minute video lectures, quizzes, opinion polls. You're talking with your peers and learning discussions. There are some discussions happening in the chat, much like what we're seeing here right now. You will have assignments with practical real world application. Again, we want you to be doing the work here, but work that you can take to your work right away. So all of it is here to help and be convenient for you and really see the transformative profit that's available to take in the program. Here's a high level overview of other ways that we have interactions and how you'll be learning the content. Live webinar with faculty, much like what we're experiencing right now. Okay, more activities for you to try out and apply to your work right away. There's live office hours. I can't stress enough how important office hours are. Come with your questions, come prepared, and go. Everything is recorded, but please try your hardest to make it to the live sessions. Again, recording is great, but you want to be able to get your questions asked and answered as well. There's some case studies, as Professor Calkins mentioned, as well as a dedicated program support team. Again, we want you all to be successful, so please lean on all the help that you have and access all the different ways we provided for you to get connected during the program. And my favorite feature, the mobile learning app. Everyone has a smartphone or a tablet these days, so you can really learn on the go. If you're someone working in the city, with your headphones, you can listen to the bite-sized learning while you're waiting on the train. And that even gives you more time to go through and delve in lots of opportunities for you to make it accessible and easy for you to get through your day. All right. We also have subject matter experts that are going to help you provide their learning facilitators that you'll have working with you side by side if you need help. Okay, lots of communication, feedbacks on your assignment. Again, go to those live office hours and come with your questions prepared so that you can get the answers that you need. And then upon successful completion of the program, you will need to pass the 80% or above to pass and earn your certificate of completion from Northwestern Kellogg. It will look much like this. A great way to showcase your learning, showcase all your hard work. You can put this onto your LinkedIn. If you're working in an organization and looking to move into a more leadership decision-making role, it's a good way to showcase your learning to your managers and the folks at your orgs. All right, and I'm going to leave it here at this page. Currently in your learning journey, you have reached the next steps part of getting enrolled in the program. You've gotten here the information webinar. We're here to answer any more questions you have. If you click on that bit.ly link, it will take you to a landing page that looks much like what we're seeing here. If you have a smartphone like we just were talking about, you can use your QR code right now and scan that onto the screen, onto your smartphone. That will take you to the landing page that you see here. Or you can click on the Apply Now button. As you can see at the bottom of my screen, there is a link. You can click there as well. Currently, we're in implementation mode, so you cannot click it. But once you receive the PowerPoint, you can move yourself to the last page of the slide deck and click on the link there to get connected as well. Our program advisors are here to help you get enrolled, answer any of your logistical questions. As we saw in the chat earlier, there are folks from all over the globe, which means we have lots of different time zones. So please get connected with your program advisors to make sure you know exactly what you need. And you can get all the information as far as times of live webinars, live classes. Get connected with your program advisors to help you with the logistical questions.
who is this program sort of good for?
Mhm.
And my take on that is that this program works for people who know a lot about branding and have a lot of experience. And what happens for those folks is they're able to recognize some of the things we talk about, and then we build on those things. And so they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that in my working life, or I've used maybe that tool or one of these tools, and then they build on all of that. But it also works for people who are newer to it, because we start right at the beginning and we build from there. And the whole design of this program is we start off pretty easy in that first week, and then it gets more complicated, and the tools get more complicated, the issues get more complicated. You get to the end of this, some of those strategic questions, really interesting business questions with lots of different dimensions to think about. So I think it works really both for there. The one thing that is good though is that you're going to get the most out of this program if you're interested in brands, and if you find it both interesting and important, right? How these brands work. We love brands and we love talking about brands. And if you bring that spirit to this program, I think you're going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I would add that, some people take this course to help work on problems that their business is experiencing right now. And not only in the sessions in the class, but also in the sessions with our program leaders. The office hour sessions, they go in there and say, okay, what should I do in this situation? How do I improve my positioning statement? How do I apply the customer journey model to my business? They are putting us to work advising on their business. And that's a terrific way to take the course. The other way I've seen people take the course, however, is in preparation for a transition. So somebody's moving from sales into a marketing role. Somebody is moving from R&D into a business management role. And they're like, there are some new skills that I need. And it may not be that they're new to business, but they're new to this sort of role. And this is a nice way to kind of dip your toe in, learn a vocabulary, learn a set of concepts, learn how another sort of field thinks about issues, and get yourself prepared so that when you walk into that new role, either a new role in your current company or a new role in a new company, that you can hit the ground running. And we've seen people use the course successfully in a couple of these different areas. And I think you can too. At the same time, people are applying this to big company sort of jobs. And also we've had almost every cohort. We've had a couple people who are taking this course because they have plans to start their own brand. All right, their own company, they have entrepreneurial sorts of interests. So big company applications and small current job and future job, very experienced marketers and people who are new to it. And strangely, right, for somebody who talks about targeting, we've found that we get really positive feedback from people across these different applications. Yeah, so there's a question from, do you provide templates that we can apply in our work life? Yes, lots and lots and lots of templates. So there's a template for a positioning statement. There's a template for a customer journey. There's a template for a marketing plan. There's a template for how you figure out what an attack on your business is going to cost you. But not only are we going to hand you the templates, but we're going to work through together several examples of them, right? And we're going to give you a chance to apply them, adjust them, right? Because a template is often kind of generic, and you're going to say, wait a second, right? This is a generic customer journey, but my customer journey has a bunch of loops that aren't on here. How do I make this work for mine? So we will work with templates as starting places, but then we will help you kind of use them in a way that they feel custom for your business.
Yeah. I'll get another question. Is it mainly pre-recorded or is it live? And the answer is, it is both. So some of it is pre-recorded. So in this program, there's a whole series of videos that you watch and activities that you do. All of that is recorded. What is actually nice about that is you can do that whenever is convenient for you. So if you've got time on the train, not while driving, but if you've got time at home in the evening, whatever works for you, you can do that. There also, though, are live sessions. So we do live webinars. And when we do our webinars, by the way, in the program, it's different. This is a webinar, but in the program, we do more of a class. So we can interact and we can get your questions and we call on you. And it's much more like a class experience we would have at Kellogg. There also are office hours that you go to, which is a way to get additional questions answered. So I think in this program, it's a really nice combination of the pre-recorded things, but also live things. We really like, by the way, getting to know the people in the program a little bit and hearing about your businesses and your brands and your challenges. And that's what makes this all fun for us. So it's that combination that lets us do that. So you'll see that, a series of these different interactive classes along with the recordings, and it's a nice combination.
And do we teach about pricing strategy? And I'm going to answer that question with a really big yes and no. All right. So is this specifically 6 weeks of pricing strategy as a course? The answer is no. And could we teach 6 weeks on pricing strategy? The answer is yes, because that's a very complicated, very, very important area. And there's a lot you can do with how to think about pricing, how to think about responding to price competitors. And Tim and I both teach in some of our other classes about that sort of material. So is this 6 weeks of pricing strategy? No, it is not. However, all right, the decisions that you make about who you're for and who you're not, where you're going to win and where you're not, have everything to do with how you can price or how you can't price. And so we're going to be adjacent to pricing strategy. Pricing will come up in the course, especially when we get into talking about growth strategy and ways people are going to attack you, because very, very frequently competitors attack with lower price strategies. So we will be talking about that in the course, but is it specifically a course where we're going to spend, go deep into pricing for 6 weeks? No.
Just want to say again, this is a good opportunity for you to click on one of the ways that we said to get connected to program advisors, where you'll be able to enter your name, address, phone number, and ways to get connected that way. If you have any specific logistical questions to your specific time zone, your specific country code, we want to make sure you get the right information.
Ideas, strategies that we go through in this program are relevant regardless of whether you're in a B2B or a B2C space. Also, there was a question I saw about services, and all of it applies to services as well. There's different dynamics for every brand, just like people are different. Every brand's got their own particular situation. But during the program, we do use examples we use B2B examples, we use B2C examples. There's sort of a mix of those two. There might be more B2C examples, but only because B2C is sometimes a little easier for people to understand those businesses. So it's easier for us to give those examples. But you'll see both of those kinds of examples, and the tools are all relevant in both of those different spaces, right? What's your take on that, Julie?
Yep, I would agree with you. All right. And same thing with products and services. All right. So sometimes we're talking about hotels and airlines, and sometimes we're talking about, keyboards and books, right? So all of those sorts of categories, and lots of applications of each tool in a bunch of different areas.
All right. Thank you both again for answering our questions and being here with us and staying up until this hour to help provide the information that our participants need and want. And I thank everyone for participating and sharing your questions. They're very helpful, especially those who shared in the crowd. This is much like how it will be in your classroom, contributing. And those of you who are sharing and maybe did not, it's helpful for having other participants ask the questions that we may all be thinking and asking. So we thank you again for that. You can come here, click on the link there. If you have a smartphone available, you can grab the QR code now. So when we close out the webinar, you are not lost without the bit.ly or a link to get connected with a program advisor who can help you with any real logistical needs to getting started with the program. And even if you come up and you have a content question that you think of later, please rest assured you can still connect with your program advisor, and they can connect with the right person to get that content question answered if they don't have the answer for you. So please rely on us. We're here for you. So I'm going to look, so I'll invite professors. I don't know who wants, Julie, why don't we start with you first? Any last words you have to the audience who may be thinking about considering joining? Any last words of wisdoms? And thank you for you, Tim. Well, let you end on a note before we say goodbye to the group.
Yeah. So maybe one thing we haven't really talked about, we think this area is really fun. The stories that we get to talk about, the competitive battles that we get to talk about, the founders' stories of how brands were built and grown are terrifically interesting. And so one of the fun things about teaching this class is that it is a continually fascinating, fun, intriguing area where, you know, you're learning something in class and then telling it to your friend in the afternoon because, you know, you want to share what you learn. And so that's part of what makes it fun to teach, and I think also fun to be in the class. And so you know, we talk about how useful this is, and that's really good. But the 6 weeks goes by very, very quickly because it's just plain interesting. Tim, you want to finish up here?
I'll do it. Thanks, Julie. And I would agree with that completely. It really is it's a fun area. But I also think that branding is just so important, and it's important for the businesses you work on. It's important for you as a person. It's important for all of us. And so understanding how brands work, how they create value, how they operate, how we build them is a really useful set of skills. I like to think this program is sort of immediately applicable. You can go to some of these sessions, start doing the things and start playing with it right away. And it's some tangible, very real stuff. And so hopefully you'll sign up and join us. We love doing it. We love talking about it. And we look forward to seeing you in the program.
All right. Thanks again, both of you, Professor Hennessy, Professor Calkins. It's been an honor to be here and listening to the content. I'm excited for everyone in the group. And we wish you all a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And we will see you soon. Thank you for coming.